The Helping Young People Choose the Birth Control Method Right for Them resource tutorial is a 5-part tutorial developed by Activate. Activate is funded by the Office of Population Affairs to translate sexual and reproductive health research into resources for professionals who support young people experiencing the child welfare or justice system, homelessness, and/or disconnection from school and work. Activate previously developed a resource that professionals can use to facilitate conversations with young people, which centers young people's birth control preferences, needs, and priorities. The purpose of this tutorial is to illustrate how to use the resource. The tutorial was developed with input from youth supporting professionals who might use the resource and young people who might benefit from its use. The Helping Young People Choose the Birth Control Method Right for Them resource is a 2-part research-informed resource created by Activate. The resource is designed for youth supporting professionals who want to help young people make informed decisions about birth control. The first part of the resource is the Birth Control Methods Guide that includes instructions for using the guide, background information, reflective questions, conversation starters, and a matrix that includes 18 birth control methods. The background module reviews what we know about factors that influence young people's choice of birth control methods and describes the different categories and methods of birth control found in the resource. Modules 1, 2, and 3 show how the reflective questions, conversation starters, and matrix can be used. The second part of the resource is an information booklet that includes detailed information about the 18 birth control methods featured in the Birth Control Methods Matrix. It also includes a glossary of reproductive health terms such as long-acting reversible contraception. Module 4 shows how the booklet can be used. We developed the Birth Control Methods Guide and Information Booklet using a 4-step process. First, through Activate's needs assessment, we identified a need for a resource that helps youth supporting professionals empower young people to choose a birth control method that is right for them. Second, we reviewed the literature on factors that influence the birth control choices young people make. Third, we sought input from youth supporting professionals and young people on the content and format of the resource and how it might be used. Finally, a pediatrician and public health professional with expertise in adolescent medicine and pregnancy prevention reviewed the resource to ensure its medical accuracy. This is Module 1. Here we describe how to use the self-reflection questions in the Birth Control Methods Guide. The background module reviews what we know about the factors that influence the birth control choices young people make and provides information about the 5 different categories of birth control methods. Module 2 explains how to use the conversation starters in the Birth Control Methods Guide. Module 3 explores how to use the Birth Control Methods Matrix in the Birth Control Methods Guide. And Module 4 illustrates how to use the Birth Control Methods Information Booklet. After completing this module, you will know how to use the reflective questions to assess your readiness to talk with young people about choosing a birth control method and prepare for a conversation about birth control methods with a young person. Now, we will provide a brief overview of the section of the Birth Control Methods Guide that includes the reflective questions.
The Birth Control Methods Guide includes 3 sections. 1. Instructions for using the Birth Control Method Guide. 2. Background. And 3. Conversation starters and a birth control methods matrix. This module will focus on the reflective questions that are included in Conversation Starters and Birth Control Methods Matrix section of the guide. They can be found on the top half of page 4. The 5 reflective questions are meant to help youth supporting professionals assess whether they are ready to have a conversation with young people about choosing a birth control method. The first reflective question focuses on the physical location where the conversation will take place. The other 4 reflective questions focus on the youth supporting professional's comfort level and relationship with the young person. One example is, have you built enough rapport with the young person to ask sensitive questions? Another example is, do you believe you are the best person to have this conversation with the young person? Upon reflection, a youth supporting professional might decide that someone who is closer in age or of the same gender as the young person would be better positioned to have this conversation. Or they may realize that they won't be able to put their own biases about certain birth control methods aside. Regardless of the reason, it is important to make sure the right person initiates and continues to have these conversations with young people, because it will inform the decisions they make or do not make as a result. In addition to using the reflective questions to assess their readiness to have a conversation with young people about choosing a birth control method, youth supporting professionals may want to review Activate's 7 tips for youth supporting professionals for talking with youth about sexual and reproductive health.
The 7 tips included in that resource are listed here. 3 of those tips may be particularly helpful when talking with young people about birth control. Use inclusive, gender-neutral language, honor and respect youth's requests in decision making, and build safe physical and emotional environments in person and virtually. A link to the tip sheet is included in the description of this video and on the first page of the Birth Control Methods Guide. Now we will walk through a scenario that illustrates how these reflective questions might be used. The scenario features a youth supporting professional who wants to feel more comfortable talking to a young person about birth control. Marina works at a transitional housing program for youth. Julia is a 17-year-old resident in the program who is gender fluid. Julia recently confided in Maria that they are interested in using birth control but don't know what their options are. Marina doesn't feel prepared to talk with Julia about their birth control options. How might Marina use the birth control methods guide in this situation? Marina can start by using the reflective questions on page 4 of the Birth Control Methods Guide to prepare for the conversation with Julia. For example, she can think about whether Julia will feel safe and whether their privacy will be protected in the physical or virtual space where they will have the conversation. Marina can also ask herself if she is prepared to listen to Julia without being judgmental. For Marina, being non-judgmental would mean allowing Julia to choose the birth control method that is aligned with their preferences, without imposing her own opinions. Another step Marina can take to prepare herself for a conversation with Julia about birth control is to review other relevant Activate resources. For example, she can review 7 tips for youth supporting professionals for talking with youth about sexual and reproductive health. Additionally, because Julia identifies as gender fluid, Marina might also review Activate's Using Trauma Responsive LGBTQ+ Affirming Care to Connect Young People to Sexual and Reproductive Health Services. This resource touches on the ways that trauma might impact young people's sexual and reproductive health and how professionals can be responsive to their needs. Talking about birth control might bring up feelings for Julia that Marina should be prepared for. This resource also includes key concepts to guide professionals working with LGBTQ+ youth, which briefly reviews gender and sexual identities and provides foundational knowledge and key terms specific to working with LGBTQ+ youth. Now you know how to use the Birth Control Methods Guide to assess your readiness to talk with young people about choosing a birth control method and prepare yourself to have that conversation. The next module will show you how to begin that conversation using the conversation starters in the Birth Control Methods Guide. We would like to acknowledge the youth supporting professionals and young people with lived experience who contributed to the development of this tutorial. Please contact Activate using the email address listed if you have any questions about the tutorial. All 5 of the tutorial's modules can be found on Activate's website at activatecenter.org.